Atocha, on the hot September summer day in the year 1622, 30 square-rigged ships lay wait from their captains to set sail for the long voyage back to Spain. The ships were in Havana harbor in the two Spanish galleons, the flagships of all the fleet at anchor. The two flagships were Margarita and Atocha, with the crew on board making ready was set to get underway. The captain, very sure of himself, was standing on the quarter-deck of the Atocha. He was watching his crew and looking at the area where the passengers would be when they setting sail. He walked down from the quarter-deck as his ship made slow rolling moves. Once the waves, he looked over the port railing, then walked over to the starboard side and looked back at the fleet that was at his command. The time was right in the early afternoon. The wind was a little high but great for his ship. The Atocha captain yelled out his command to the crew: raise the anchor and drop all sails. Full. As part of the crew was raising the anchor, the rest of the crew climbed all the masts to drop the sails. Captain also ordered two men to fire a small cannon on the stern in response to let the fleet know to get underway. Each ship in the fleet also fired their small cannons, until all 30 ships were underway. Passing the castle that guarded Havana harbor, the fleet of ships sailed northward. Everyone in Havana came out to watch as all the ships left the harbor. It was like a flock of seagulls flying low on the water, with all of the various of sails upon a blue sky with cotton clouds as the ships danced on the waves. And away on the Atocha the rigging hummed as the crew adjusted all the rigging and sails on the lead galleon. Set the sails for the best speed that the captain could get, as the ship was very heavy in the water. While on the quarter-deck again checked the port, and the captain glanced to starboard side, making sure that a smaller merchant ship in the current position. Also the position of the Margarita was astern starboard side, with its two smaller ships as well. Then after the captain checked all the Atocha is the lead ship. Now he walked up to the forecastle, staring back now toward the stern as the ship rolled with every wave and headed the bow break through each waves. The ship leaned from the side to another, for the winds in the sails did not stay true due to little changes in the block and tackle. By this time the captain was glad headed to his cabin. Before getting to his cabin below decks, there were guarded room to men with swords and muskets, to guard the silver and gold and anything else of high value. The captain asked, "How are you holding out down here, Munho?" One the guards replied, "The best we can, Captain, sir." "Yao Song Yin Ho," the captain replied. "That what I like to hear." Walking by and past them, going to his cabin. In the captain cabin he sat down to write down dates and time of events leaving Havana in his logbook. There he said large glass windows on the stern of the ship gave him the best view of all the sailing ships behind, a total of 28 in sight to behold. Captain wrote down in his log, September 4th, sailing from Havana with fleet all is well. Yao Song Yin Ho. Next to the captain cabin was set aside for any King of Spain family or anyone of his court. The cousin of the King of Spain had the cabin, her name Maria Sanchez. She was in the cabin. In the two small cabins on the same deck had seconds in command for the ship, also any priests in the other cabin. Havana harbor now gone out of sight as all the ships are in the dark blue to black seas off the Gulf Stream. The sea had a slow roll in every wave, as if they wanted to grow high as the winds seems to get a little stronger. On the Atocha, high in the mainmast up in the crown nest, a sailor is keeping lookout, as it is very hard to hold on high rolls and pitching of ship below. With the sweat in his brow and on his hands, also the painful salt air hurting his hands and feet, also eyes. All of this was too much for the sailor as he passed out and dropped out of the crown nest, with his body hitting the main deck of the ship very loud. Small part of the crew went to help, but it was too late, for he passed away. The young sailor was tossed overboard without a funeral. It was reported to the captain, who stayed in his cabin, who did not even look at the sailor. Most of the 265 people on board the ship was below decks. The news of the sailor death traveled about the ship, for it was still early in the voyage. Below the cannon's deck is where the rest of the passengers and crew was crammed. It an area of 100 by 30 feet, and the decks below were the animals and barrels. of water and wine. In with the passengers was an old man who called himself Atocha, for he was very seasick from tossing and turning on the dim light area below decks, laying in a swaying hammock with everyone else beside him watching cockroaches run up and down the walls and hearing sounds of rats with the animals below deck. Atocha kept saying in his seasickness, Atocha his curse over and over. A woman walked over to him the best she could as the deck on which she walked was pitching and rolling just to give Atocha some water to drink. She had an old long blue dress and a white ragged shirt, and gentle in her words, for she was trying to not scare anyone else as she said, "Do not fear, we are not cursed, Yao Song Yen Ho." Yet Atocha thanked the woman, but she did not give her name. So she went back to her swaying hammock and Atocha started over again. Atocha's curse, Yao Song Yen Ho. With the lack of personal hygiene and privacy, the foul smells of people and villages, no fresh air below decks would make for a hard voyage in months to follow. This was like that on all of the other ships too. The lower passengers and crew was treated like animals and threatened with their lives if anything was said about the ship or its captain. During the night the winds and seas started to grow more violent with rain and lightning. The sails and the rigging made even a louder humming sound than before, as the helmsman fought his wooden wheel just to keep control as the ship pitching and rolling, leaning from side to side. Yet the captain kept all sails up, hoping the storm would pass by dawn. The helmsman during the storm yelling to the storm, "I will not give in into your ways," as the rain and wind spit hard at his body and all of the crew, for the storm in the night was just a squall line where other squall lines will follow. By the early dawn of September the 5th was near the dry Tortugas. The wind shifted again, but this time the full force of the storm hit the fleet the hardest, for it was a hurricane. The smaller ships used the islands that blocked the high winds and seas, while the larger ships stayed out into the open. Yet all of the fleet was lost the day on the reefs. A total of 550 people lost their lives, with only 6 making it through the storm. Many centuries passed as time took total on the ships and the poor souls below. A tall man by the name of Mel Fisher, whom always dreamed of conquering the ocean, for he was quiet and laid back but very sure of himself in quest of pursuing his dream. From his youth in Indiana to go west, the final dream of finding and conquering the Atocha and the Margarita, by Kent Price. April 18, 2004